Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm Jeff.
Thanks for listening to the Stanching Tyranny Hour. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and pull up a chair while we start the march toward liberty.
That doesn't make sense. How does one march while in a chair?
Good question. You can figure it out. You're the engineer.
Well, stay tuned and we'll let you know on 1450 AM WPG.
Good morning. Welcome to the Stanching Tyranny Hour this morning. Fine Saturday.
Yes, it is. The birds are singing. Did you hear all them birds?
Yeah, all the birds out.
It was still dark, and them birds were hooping it up.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm enjoying the longer day.
Yeah,
well, it's not really longer, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, daylight savings time.
So welcome, and these longer days just allow just the tyranny to march on, doesn't it?
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's like more time to make more rules and regulations and all kinds of stuff to keep us people in line.
Well, it's probably easier to keep us distracted when, you got longer days.
It probably is.
Because, you do stuff and maybe you're doing more outdoors things.
Right.
Well, enjoying the warming weather and the increasing sunshine. And so, you're busy, you're distracted, and that's perfect.
It is. But, doing some good things outside is good.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying don't do anything outside, but I'm just saying, Don't let them win by distracting you completely.
Right.
You can still work outside and have your iPod or whatever, your iPhone playing
the truth
alternative radio
and
like this.
Tyranny, yeah.
Of course.
For those who are listening, or maybe you have people who you want to introduce the show to, there's a few ways you can do it. You can do it through Facebook. Just search Stanching Tyranny and go ahead and like our fan page. And also, another great thing to do is go on YouTube. If you miss an episode, search on YouTube Stanching Tyranny, and we record the show, and then we'll post it up on YouTube probably either later today or tomorrow. And that'll be there for your listening pleasure. Go ahead and share it on Facebook. Get some friends listening into the truth. And that would be great.
And spread the word.
Spread the word, yeah. So we have a number of things we want to talk about. One was right here in our own backyard.
Right.
It got a lot of press coverage, so I don't know that we'll spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
I would think our listeners know.
Yeah, I think they know. And Carl was right on the phone this morning. So
okay.
Carl's probably up because, we got the longer days.
I get up to listen to you guys.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Carl.
But the first thing, I'm going to be a little serious, and, I'm not usually. Yesterday I was at a breakfast with a friend of mine. I haven't seen him in, 10 years, and his church is looking at getting solar.
Oh, okay.
He told me, the guy come out, and the church people, they wanted to know, well, what happens if you go out of business? And they said, somebody will pick up the contract. So I gave him your guys' card, and I said, you're third generation, and I told him how happy I was with you, and
thank you.
and all that stuff. And I think the guy told me that the guy to come out for the solar, he's also a pilot, but he only flies by night.
Flies by. Wow.
I'm bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, well that's great. We appreciate that, passing that on for us, and we'd be glad to help. With churches, typically they enter into what's known as a PPA, a power purchase agreement, which really allows them to get some of the benefits of solar without spending a whole lot of money. That's what churches typically do because they can't take advantage of the tax credit.
Right.
So.
Right now, this thing, them two bills by Senator Whalen, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, the bag bill, the 5-cent bag bill, and that one for the almost a penny a mile for driving.
Right.
Yeah.
And I heard you last week say about names of radio stations. Well, sometimes some of us give radio stations our own names, and I didn't make this one up. But somebody else did, and if they call it, they'll take credit for it. But it's something like the station with depends on.
Oh, yeah.
It's close to what they say.
That's clever.
Right, that is. Yeah.
But, and the other thing,
have there been any new developments in those bills, Carl?
Well, I heard the senator, he's been very angry talking that it's only fair. It's only fair. It's only fair that the electric cars pay mileage, for gas tax. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one on the road yet, but it's only fair. Yeah.
Yeah. We know of two. We know of two.
Okay.
A couple customers of ours have electric cars.
Right.
And they're a great way to go if you have
surplus,
electricity.
Right. If you have solar and you have that surplus at the end of the year, you know they're only going to give you what, 6 cents,
8 cents a kilowatt
hour.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's more beneficial for you to use it.
Right, but at this time you can't go real far.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so they're good for, local cars. You definitely can't, at this point, take a cross-country trip in one because there's not enough charging stations, and who knows where they are.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Senator Whalen is all about fairness. That's all we...
Right. It's only fair that you... go to the grocery store if you don't take your own bag. It's only fair that you would pay 5 cents a bag and 80% would go to the state. That's only fair.
And they always spend our money the most, the most professional and responsible way.
Okay, one more thing about Atlantic City. They're trying to figure out if they want to put a bike path on Atlantic Avenue, make Atlantic Avenue 2 lanes instead of 4, put 2 fences down the center of the avenue for the bikes to ride in between. And the main reason is to keep the jaywalkers from crossing, except at the intersections. And you know what fund they have a grant from for doing that?
Let me guess. Some sort of federal Department of Transportation or Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, the funds that's broken. That's why Senator Whalen wants to get more money by charging miles.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad that our overlords do things with fairness in mind. Isn't that all we can ask for is fairness from our overlords?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just to make sure that no one's getting one up on anyone else. Oh, that is except for the political class, because they deserve it.
And you know what I think would only be fair? I think it'd only be fair if you guys get 2 hours instead of 1 hour.
Yeah, that would be great. Hear, Carl. Yeah, here.
Can you call Mr. Whalen for us, Carl? That bill going?
I'm sure.
You know who I have to call? Because I know he calls this show. The governor.
All right,
call him. The governor, guess what? One of them other stations, and in fact it was that station I made reference to, they were saying the governor was going to call their show, and I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, he ain't going to call that show. he calls you guys' show. I said, he's not going to call. And guess what? They were apologizing. The governor didn't call their show.
Oops.
Oh, wow.
Oops, that's not good.
Isn't
that funny?
That is funny.
I'm going to email the governor, and they can email your show and see if we can get you 2 hours.
That'd be great. Just tell them not to listen to some of our old shows.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Carl. Have a good weekend.
So, Senator Whalen is just concerned about fairness.
I see, What would we do without him?
That's right. And, we were at a family function yesterday, and our radio show came up, and not everybody listens, listeners. Believe it or not. It's true. Scott, do you believe that? Not everybody listens, and so they asked what we talk about, and
and that's always trouble.
Yeah, that is always trouble.
I mean, when your family already thinks you're kind of nuts,
right?
Then you just prove it.
And which they will say, well, listeners probably know how that conversation went. To which the person responded, well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, you just.
I said, so I have to accept my enslavement by my overlords just because that's always been the way it has been.
Right, and you can't do anything about it. You just got to accept it and plod along, and like Lindsey Graham says, shut up and sit down and pay your taxes.
And typically that's when they walk away and go get a drink or something to eat.
Yeah, right.
So. Such that it is.
That's right. And we have another call. It's good morning, Andrea. How are you this morning?
Yes, good morning, Jim and Jeff. And I don't know about you, I am outraged. I'm incensed. I'm ticked off. We've been sequestered, as well as the president's food taster yesterday.
I
guess he must have got laid off.
That's a shame.
I can't believe it.
He could not partake in the lavish lobster lunch.
I know.
And his minstrel was uninvited, and his grape peelers, too.
I can't believe that. And, there is something wrong with America.
This is a sequester. It's them Republicans. Yeah, it's all their fault, isn't it, Andrea?
There's something...
I guess they put the food taster, the minstrel, and the grape peelers, sequestered them in a little hotel room where they can't watch TV, listen to the radio, talk to each other or any relatives, just like the O.J. Simpson.
Right.
I guess when they were sequestered.
Yeah. And apparently they can't use their alarm clock.
Maybe the minstrel is, tap dancing around, and maybe he's, throwing grapes around at the food tester. Yeah. I don't know, but...
well, it's a sad day in America when a president can't rely on his food tester.
Eat his own lobster.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Because,
what would have happened if he ate it?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who didn't have a food tester, probably.
Who?
Hugo Chavez. Right?
That's true. He didn't have a taster, did he?
Think about it like an airline captain. He doesn't have a food tester. He doesn't. I dole out. They always say, Neil, you really want to get back at somebody. Get back at Air Force One and not have the food taster from the pilot. But anyway, we won't go there.
Yeah.
There's so many smart people that call in, and people who really probably out here who would like to, run, for office here, out here in Radio Land. But maybe they're afraid to run for office because maybe they haven't paid their income taxes for years, or maybe they have a drunk driving conviction or two on their record, or leaving the scene of an accident and leaving their license plate there, having children out of wedlock. But doesn't that include about 75% of the people that we have in office right now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds like qualification.
God, they found out I didn't pay my 5 cents for my bag. But personally, I found out that personally, about I would say between 67 and 70% of both the Senate and Congress people we have elected or in arrears of paying personally $33 million in unpaid taxes. And they're telling us what we can and can't do.
Well, and there you have it, because they know the system, they work the system, and if they can use their power and prestige to get a little wink and a nod, they'll most certainly do that.
Well, I do have a little power and prestige. You think maybe I could apply and come in halves and be the food taster, and I'll only charge like 50 cents.
That's a great idea.
Only if they're serving lobster, though.
Thank you, Andrea, for saving the taxpayer money. We really appreciate that.
We salute you.
And thank you so much. And I'm for 2 hours, too, because this is probably, the only show that really shows, and that's absolute tyranny, not to allow our president to eat his lobster.
That's right. And I won't stand for it.
That's tyranny.
Right. That's why I'm sitting.
Okay,
yes, thank you, Andrea.
All right, thanks, Andrea.
Yeah. So that's a real story.
I know it is.
That's not a joke.
Yeah, it's not.
The food taster was not available. I'm not really sure why. But
so what did he do? He just didn't eat?
Yeah. Well, there was a video clip of the hostess of this. Apparently, it was in Maine or something.
Okay.
And it was
lobster. Probably.
It was fresh, and it was a function. And, everybody was eating the same thing, and from what I saw, nobody died or got sick or nothing.
Right.
So they were having some really nice, locally farmed and prepared foods.
Right.
And the lady said, "Oh yeah, the president." He looked longingly at the meal, but he couldn't eat it because his food taster wasn't available.
Wow.
He just,
that is awful.
He didn't eat.
What kind of country are we? We're a bunch of barbarians is what we are.
Yeah, I have to call for an end to the sequester. Yeah. I don't care how many trillions in debt we
Raise
are.
my taxes.
If our president can't have his food taster, then I'm willing to, I'll just give you all my income.
That's right.
You're already taking half of it anyway. Yeah. If my president can't have a food taster, far be it from me to, subsist on 50% of my income.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
Wow. So food taster.
Yeah, that's the real.
Wow.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't food tasters, didn't that start like back in Caesar's day?
I think it did. Yeah,
they were also paranoid that they were going to. But
so
I like
that
your comment about Hugo Chavez.
Yeah,
apparently he did not have a food
doesn't
taster.
look like it.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it.
I
But
agree.
we have an example of tyranny right here in good old South Jersey.
Yeah,
right here.
Great?
And what we're speaking of is Eileen Hart from Newfield. Went to a tax open house type thing, I think they call it.
Yeah, I think Gloucester County, like so many other counties, they were having a mandatory reassessment, right?
They're having a reassessment.
The local taxes, the real estate taxes.
Yeah, and this Eileen Hart went to that, and apparently she is an Orthodox Jew, and that means that she can't allow, I guess, other men or people in general, I suppose.
Yeah, the man of the house has to be home when
yeah.
other people come in the home, apparently.
And evidently, because they never actually made the tour of the house, they just arbitrarily reassessed her home based on what they thought. Yeah. And so she went in there reciting the Constitution, and she ended up basically being thrown out of the auditorium and locked up.
Wow.
And
you know the disturbing thing about this story, and it's been a couple days. We've been kind of distracted with the family events going on and all. So I haven't heard any updates. But
no, I haven't either.
It occurred to me that wouldn't you hear from someone else who was there? I mean, wouldn't this woman be defended by another citizen that saw what happened and would come out and say, she wasn't doing anything wrong? Yeah, maybe she was passionate about, her position, but she didn't threaten anybody.
Yeah,
she didn't make any terroristic threats.
Yeah,
any of that.
I know she got a lot of coverage this week. It was on The Blaze. It was on the Drudge Report, InfoWars. It was all over the place, and unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to follow it. I would love to know if anyone else who attended the meeting said, she was
defense.
If there were such witnesses, that would be important for them to be pointed out.
Yeah, and if there has been no one, coming forward to do that, that's really troubling.
It is.
I mean,
if it happens the way
that she said, and for that matter, you would think that someone corroborating the other side would come forward too. We haven't heard either.
I don't think the tax assessor or this representative from the appraisal company. I forget the name of the company.
Yeah. But
they contract this appraisal company.
Yeah, it's a third party company that does the appraisals, right?
Yeah, and
Independent Appraisal Corp or something like that.
Appraisal Systems Inc.
That's it.
Yeah, and the tax assessor Robin Glocker Hammond evidently hasn't really spoken to many media, or any that I'm aware of.
Right.
And that's disturbing, because this tax assessor woman basically said that she is the law enforcement.
Right.
And that's why she got thrown out, because she's law.
Yeah. Right.
And I guess you're not allowed to have an opinion, and you have to do what your overlords want you to do, otherwise they will punish you.
In this case, that's proof. And let's talk about the punishment here in a minute. But first, let's talk to Viola in Atlantic City. Good morning, Viola.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to tell you, Andrea's right. During the Democratic Convention, Johnson stayed at the Shelburne Hotel, and I was his waitress. Wow. And when we had to take any food up to the penthouse or any food from anywhere, one of the Secret Service men would test it, taste everything to make sure it wasn't poisoned.
Wow.
This has been going on for some time. This isn't
That's been going on for years.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. And so we're right back to the days of Rome, where basically that's what they did, and you would just watch to see if the food taster would keel over.
Well, I used to kid them all the time and say, "Have you got a good insurance policy?"
Yeah.
Well, if you did that these days, Viola, you'd be arrested. They take that as a threat.
Yeah. Oh, we used to have fun with them.
Yeah.
But when they stayed in the, I'll tell you another story about it. You think the Democrats are bad now? They used to go to the meeting in Convention Hall every night at 8 o'clock, and they gave us time to get the hotel all cleaned up for them to come back. So I was waiting on Chet Huntley and Brinkley, and they, all of a sudden they came back from the meeting, and I said to them, "What are you guys doing back here? You're supposed to be down in Convention Hall." And they said to me, "We don't have any seats, and neither does any of the delegation." Bobby Kennedy had double printed tickets, brought in busloads of students from colleges, and they filled up. There was no seats for the delegates that night.
Wow.
Wow,
right?
Oh,
I can
great.
tell you a million stories.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, thank you so much for the call, Viola.
And call in the future. We'd love to hear more stories.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Viola.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Viola,
Harry knows me.
okay.
Keep
bye.
Thanks, Viola.
Thank you.
Viola, isn't that a beautiful name?
Yeah,
we have fond memories.
We grew up with a Viola
Yep.
up in the Pennsylvania mountains.
Yeah.
What a sweet lady she
was. She was.
And of course, this Viola sounded very sweet too.
Yeah. But the Eileen Hart, getting back to her, so her punishment, she got hauled off to the jail in the paddy wagon
and what were the charges? She was
terroristic threats.
with making terroristic threats.
Charged with making terroristic threats.
Okay.
Now, somebody said that she said something about coming back with a gun or something. If the door is locked, I'll be back with a gun. Is what
now this was when she was
says.
taken out of the meeting. She said that.
Well, it doesn't say when she said it.
Okay.
It just says, quote, "The defendant was yelling and screaming and making the threatening comment, 'If the door is locked, I'll be back with a gun.'" Well, there you have it.
Right.
So what happens is, you're basically labeled a terrorist, which means they can do whatever they want with you.
Well, first of all, we don't know that she said that.
Well,
I mean, granted, if she said that, well, then, she's a knucklehead. You don't say that.
Right, sure.
But if she didn't, then this nebulous terroristic threat thing
charge
can be used against anybody for really anything. Just posture or body language or that can be interpreted any which way you want.
Yeah. So basically, they hauled her off to jail, and they found out they did a background check on her, and they found no criminal record or anything.
No criminal record. Okay.
But they did find that she owned a couple of handguns.
And how did they find that out?
Well, because they did a background check, and here in New Jersey, of course, you have to register your handguns.
Right.
So they found out that she had handguns. So they told her basically that we will keep you in jail unless you turn in your handguns.
Ah, nice.
And so she ended up turning.
And that's legal.
Apparently.
Right?
Apparently.
Huh.
Now, here's my question: will she get them back?
Well, I know the answer to that. The answer is no.
Yeah, I doubt she will.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
If she's able to get them back at all, it will be a very painful process.
Right.
And expensive.
Yeah.
And the desired effect is that she doesn't get them back. And if she does get them back, well, they're going to make her pay.
Well, yeah, and that's what they do again, because they can use the force of government to, let's say she's in the right. Well, they can still make it overly painful for her to stand up for her right.
Right.
Which is why a lot of Americans don't stand up for their rights anymore.
And we get comments
because they get the
well,
crushing.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you just got to accept it.
It makes things worse. It makes things worse.
So here she is. She bought guns legally. She registered them like she's supposed to. She followed all the rules.
She doesn't have a criminal background at all.
A criminal background. And I don't know, I seem to remember thinking, or hearing anyway, that registration is the first step towards confiscation. Does that ring a bell?
That does ring a bell, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you look in history, you look at Germany, you look at Russia,
China, you know, a lot of countries.
Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Registration is the first step towards confiscation. That's, you know, we're seeing that right here in our backyard.
Yeah, and they got a lot of play in the Congress this week with Senator Feinstein. Boy, she is a sea hag.
Skeletor.
So anyway, her and Senator Ted Cruz had a bit of an exchange of words.
I saw that.
Which was kind of interesting. And
Senator Ted Cruz was right. He set her straight. She didn't answer his question.
No,
instead she got on.
She got all high and mighty.
I have 20 years, blah blah blah.
The things I've seen. It's just you haven't seen what I've seen, and that's what they do. Mm-hmm. That's what people do. Is they pull out these. Well, you don't know. Have you ever been a policeman?
Right.
Have you ever been a first responder?
Yeah. As if you can't have an opinion unless you've had the experience.
Right.
And that's all part of
the
game. Yeah, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that becomes mainstream thinking, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
That's how we get where we are.
That's it.
Let's see what Pat has to say. Good morning, Pat.
Yes, good morning, Jeff and Jim.
Good morning.
I was just watching, I think it was yesterday, Chuck Hagel, the new Secretary of Defense, and he's talking about the imminent threat now from North Korea, and we can expect a bomb any time here. And he's talking about putting up all these new defenses and missile defense all over Alaska and Japan and everything. And I'm thinking, great, this is wonderful. Thank goodness, it's about time. And then at the very end of the commentary, he says, everything should be in place by 2017.
Yeah.
2017.
Just in the nick of time.
Done by then.
Right. Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? We were talking about North Korea on the way in.
Yeah.
And so here we have this nut.
Yeah,
right?
he's a nut.
He's a nut in North Korea, whose father was a nut. And his father was also a nut.
Yeah, so we got the third generation nut here.
And here we are, we're America, right? We're all about spreading democracy and freedom across the world, right? And yet, North Korea continues to be this nutty, really bad, totalitarian state that we allow to exist.
Yeah, so what do you think of that, Pat? I mean, you know, we're so fast to go over to the Middle East and, quote-unquote, spread democracy. Well, why do we let North Korea continue to do this stuff? You know what?
I don't know. There must be something going on there that we don't know about.
Right.
That's
I agree.
The only thing I can think of. And I don't know. It just seems so ridiculous that, that it would take that long to defend ourselves. So, is it for real? Or is it just like posturing?
I don't think it's for real. I think North Korea is ruled by a nut. Number one, but number two, I believe behind the scenes you have China and or Russia,
or both.
Behind the scenes, basically.
Yeah, I think they're really pulling the strings.
They're really pulling the strings, and North Korea could very well be the scapegoat to launch an attack. In the guise of it just being a nutty North Korean, when really it's China or Russia pulling the strings and saying, okay, now we're ready, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and the other thing, Pat, that occurred to me when I saw that was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and they showed the map of these, 10,000 kilometer range could hit the western U.S., and the 6,000 kilometer missiles could hit Alaska. I don't know. I'd be willing to bet that we already have some of these systems in place.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I sure hope so, because, and as you say, I think it is China. China is sort of, when they say something to North Korea, like, stand, whatever it is, jump, and how high, I mean, I know they are in charge,
Yeah.
But it just struck me as so funny that we're going to have it in place by 2007. And he also said, and if you're thinking of doing anything, don't even think about it. And I thought, boy, I don't know whether it was just words of making it sound like we're going to do something.
Right.
But you say it's been so long so long that we've had people over there, you know, the separation of North Korea and South Korea.
Yeah.
Makes you think, guys.
It does.
You think.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does.
Okay, have a nice day.
Oh, you too,
to
Pat.
Great show as usual.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, Pat's right. Keep on thinking, people. You know, look this stuff up. Don't just go by what we say.
Yeah.
There's lots of information out there.
There is. So talking of North Korea makes me think of China, which makes me think of Vietnam, which makes me think of John McCain, which makes me think of Wacko Bird, which makes me think of how he apologized for calling you and me Wacko Bird.
I didn't hear that.
Well, all right, it wasn't you and me. But he did apologize for calling, who was it? I guess Rand Paul and Senator Cruz. Wacko Bird. Now, I watched the video. He looked like a nut. I saw the video, and I'm sorry, people, but John McCain looks like a crazy person to me.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You can't be stuck in a hole for 2 years and not have a few screws loose.
That's what I'm saying. That's all. That's all. Hey,
now,
there's
the scary part is you take that person and you put them in a position of high power.
Yeah,
that's scary.
That is scary.
You know?
That is scary. And all the while, Dianne Feinstein wants to take the guns away from returning veterans. But it's okay that you got this in the lead role in the United States Senate.
Party,
But there we are.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I apologize.
He did.
Nice.
He did. Doesn't that make you feel warm and fuzzy? Yeah. Well, you got to watch the video.
I bet he had his fingers crossed behind his back.
He looks a little loopy in my. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But boy, I see the video of him. He's got that goofy smile on his face.
He does look.
John, what in the world is going up on between them ears of yours, man? What in the world's going on up there?
Yeah, but let's get back to Eileen Hart.
Yeah.
Eileen Hart. So they took her guns?
They took her guns.
Yeah.
And again, I just wonder if she's going to get them back.
So the alternative was that she would basically be stuck in jail.
Well, they essentially
made the
said that they're going
to on getting the guns.
Well, they said that it was going to be prohibitively high if she didn't turn in the guns.
So it's
exactly
what I said.
Right.
It's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
She won't get them back.
Right.
Unless she's willing to pay.
Right.
And they'll extract it out of her.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see what occurs from that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that it got some national coverage because we should hear some follow up on it.
We should.
It's been pretty quiet here locally, hasn't it? I mean, I don't even remember seeing it in the Courier Post or anything.
I first came across it from an outlet out of Atlanta, Georgia. Is where I first came upon it.
Yeah.
And it spread like wildfire. It really did.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad that it did, and we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
And we have another call. Let's go to Al in Atlantic City. Good morning, Al.
Good morning. Concerning the protection that we're going to be putting up for the missile defense system. First of all, that was Reagan's idea. That was Star Wars, which the Democrats belittled and did everything they could to stop it.
Yes.
And it was Bush's intention at the end, close to the end of his term, to put it back in force, and then Obama canceled it after he got in, and now they're all saying, oh, you know, how wonderful that we're going to be doing this because it's their idea, you know, and they're ready to go for anything, you know. It's such a pain. It's such a bunch of lies that they come up with.
Yeah.
But why would it take just to 2017 when we already have the Patriot missiles that we're already, you know, have given to, Israel, and we use them ourselves.
Right.
So we they should be sufficient to put in the meantime before you have to put in other things.
Yeah, well, one thing we have to keep in mind is that can be posturing as well. In other words, they could be saying that to make North Korea / Russia / China believe that we're not prepared,
right?
When in all reality
really
we are prepared.
And that's what I suspect. I mean, let's face it, we have subs that are loaded to the hilt with missiles, and I don't see why we couldn't react and defend ourselves from an attack like that.
I believe it. I believe when North Korea did that test, the first one that they did, and they had it, ascended. They had to get it off the ground first.
Yeah.
But I believe, and then it blew up. I believe we knocked that out from one of our satellite systems.
Well, that's what we have to be aware of too. Is the potential strike doesn't have to physically hit our ground.
Right.
They could launch a nuclear missile, have it explode miles above us, and that would do great.
It would kill our infrastructure, our electric grid. Would be done.
Yeah. So we gotta be aware of that too. Because that wouldn't do any mass casualties. In fact, probably no one would die except for all the car accidents and nuclear reactor meltdowns and stuff like that. They could do a lot of damage with that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Chances are it'll have to be destroyed somewhere away from us.
Right.
And possibly over somebody else.
Yeah.
And that could also do a lot of damage to some other country.
Right.
Maybe they'll destroy it before it gets off the ground, or after it gets off the ground over North Korea.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
They've done it before.
Yeah.
All right, Al, thank you for calling, and call again in the future.
Take care. Thanks.
The missile defense system, there's no doubt in my mind that it already exists. It's already there.
Yeah.
And we're in a position that we can defend ourselves. And I think it's a chess move, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
We probably want China and Russia to think that that we're not ready to defend ourselves, and
so that they'll show their hand more or less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of showing hands, we have the story in North Carolina. I don't know if this was in the Wall Street Journal this week, Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, that's a sad story.
It is a sad story. There's a fella named Eustace Conway. He's a
mountain man.
Mountain man, basically. Right. He lives on a 1,000-acre piece of land in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And basically, he lives off the land.
Literally,
he builds his own living structures.
Mm-hmm. No
electricity, no running water. But although he has, natural lakes and streams and that sort of thing on his property, he lives off the land. He hunts. He raises his own food. He is self-sustaining. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is, he teaches people about that lifestyle.
Yeah, primitive skills, he calls it.
Primitive skills.
Hunting and probably skinning and...
Yeah, how to make your own clothes, how to make your own tools, a lot of those
all
things.
That stuff, yeah.
Well, somebody got their bee in their bonnet regarding Mr. Conway, and they went ahead and reported him to the local code officials.
Yeah, they got an anonymous tip, right?
An anonymous tip, yep, that's right. And so what Mr. Conway describes as a SWAT team raid of bureaucrats, officials, and armed policemen showed up at his property, basically stomping through his cabins and his property,
finding everything that was wrong with it.
Yeah, and they came up with a 78-page report.
78-page report.
Of all the things that he needs to do to bring his property up to code.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Now, if this doesn't fall into the Stanching Tyranny mantra of, listeners, you don't own your property.
Right.
I don't care if you don't have a mortgage anymore. You don't own your property.
Yeah, and this ties to a case that we talked about a while back. But before we get into that, I want to take another call. We have a caller. Good morning. This is Jeff and Jim.
Yeah, how you doing, Jeff and Jim?
Good morning.
Good. How are you?
Okay, listen, I truly believe that this is a Satan that we have in our White House. I'm not a religious person, but I remember hearing somewhere back that we were going to have an imposter, and this was in the Bible, something about an imposter to rule the country.
Right.
And I believe this is the man. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. So, but the other thing is, as far as all these rules and regulations, like the health care and the gun laws, why don't we just disregard the law? Look, these people in Congress disregard the law. The president disregards the Constitution every day. So why do we have to obey the rules? I mean, maybe we should all get together and say we're not going to obey these rules. Well, and we're not going to listen to you people. And we're going to do what we want. And we'll make our own illegal weapons, and we'll do what we have to do.
Well, really,
this idiot.
Well, really, what you're speaking of is we Jeff and I would never call for any kind of armed revolt or any kind of violence or any kind of we would never say don't pay your taxes. Pay your taxes. You really should, because otherwise you'll get yourself in a whole heap of trouble. But what you can do is the things like Eustace Conway does, which is to make yourself not so dependent on government and their system. So, do you think Mr. Conway cares how much a ear of corn costs at the ShopRite? No, he doesn't.
He grows it himself.
Yeah. Does he care how much a pound of ground beef is? Does he care what the cost of gasoline is?
Right.
Does he care any of the things that we all need to care about because we're so plugged in?
Right.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is be left alone, and now that's being tested.
Yeah, and that's the real threat. Is for people that have made the decision to not participate and do it legally. I mean, this guy's not hurting anybody.
No, he's not.
Of them being drugged in.
The thing is, we're letting this guy get away with it. I mean, he's making these rules. He can come out with executive privileges.
Right.
I mean, these executive orders.
Right.
And we're supposed to obey this craziness? I'm sorry, but I sort of disagree with you guys because I think it's time for Americans to stand up for themselves and go against these. Look, these wacko leftists are only 20% of the country. Where's the other 80%? Why aren't they opening their mouths, getting together, going down to Washington and protest and say we're not going to put up with your crap anymore? Why aren't we getting off our rear ends and doing something?
Yeah.
I mean, this is our country.
Yeah.
And these people are taking our country away from us.
Yep.
And I am really pissed.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that nobody cares. They just don't seem to care.
Yeah, well,
it just boggles my mind, guys.
It's boggling.
It's unbelievable.
And,
thank you for calling.
Yeah, and that's all part of the distraction, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because the caller is right. A lot of people don't care. We were at a family function, and a lot of what we were just discussing goes in one ear and out the other, because they really don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah.
The most common refrain we hear is, "I have enough to worry about," quote unquote. My kids have school. I got to take them to soccer practice. I got to do this. I got to do that. And all the modern trappings of basically keeping us busy and distracted, and that's where we are.
And one more thing about what Bob said about being disturbed about the amount of people that you don't see participating. Don't forget, that could be a good thing. I mean, if we have a good portion of the country that refuses to participate, they can't survive.
Right.
They can't survive. If the last election is a great example. We saw a huge amount of people not even vote.
Right.
Not even participate.
Yeah. And that's what we have to pay attention to, because the dialogue that you'll hear on the media and that sort of thing is that half the country voted for Barack Obama and half the country voted for Mitt Romney.
That's
that's not true.
Right.
half of 40% voted for either or.
Right.
60%
the other half
vote
recognize that it's a silly game. That it doesn't matter which way you vote. We're still going to have the problems that we have.
Yeah.
And they've decided not to participate.
Yeah.
And again, I understand what Bob's saying, but we have to be careful because we don't necessarily want to draw attention to ourselves and be part of a database list.
No, we don't.
This could be, Bob, this could be just a way to draw us out and identify us and say, there's the enemy.
Right.
There are these people that are against the government, that want to be independent and self-sufficient.
They're the bad guys.
Liberty-minded, they're the bad guys.
Yeah, and I think something might be being cooked up around that. And
there could be.
That's what the feeling I have.
We could see a false flag event around that, and if we see that,
but one thing that Bob said in the beginning is that he thinks that the president is satanic. He said that he's not religious. We are religious. We believe in Jesus as our Savior, and frankly, I believe that there is most definitely a rather than call it satanic, I call it Luciferian agenda that's worldwide.
Right.
It's not just the president.
Right.
It's the whole.
He's part of it. He's enabling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do the research and do some reading of some, frankly, old books, this stuff has been being worked on for centuries. And, just read some of the old writings by Albert Pike and
it goes all the way back to Nimrod.
Yeah, Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, and just look up some of these names and start reading some of their works, and it's horrifying. What you'll see is their ideas are actually in practice today.
And when you compare what they wrote decades ago to
centuries,
to what we're seeing now, it's scary.
It is scary. Yeah.
We have another call. Let's take our call here. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Good morning.
It's Tony.
I wasn't sure we were going to get you, Tony, because Jeff is.
I was listening. I was just sitting back listening, having a hot cup of coffee, listening to you guys.
Well, see, what I was worried about was Jeff is running the board right now. He's pushing the button.
Like the Enterprise without Captain Kirk on
exactly.
I can shut you guys up with the push of a button.
Well, yeah. So
easy. I got control here.
Like other talk show hosts on another station.
That's right. That's right. This power. I got this power.
Great.
I have the power.
Now he's thinking
just hang up and listen till you get that treatment.
He's thinking the tyrant thing might be pretty darn good.
That's not bad, right?
Well, they get plenty of silence over there on that other station. They got crickets. You can hear them in the background sometimes. Obama couldn't eat his lavish lobster lunch there. They had to sequester the food taster, so we felt kind of sorry. They shut down our government program there, so we didn't know what to do with all of them. So we shipped them up to Maine there where he was, and they as an appetizer, they had filet of fruit fly.
All right.
And you didn't get to eat any.
That's well, they're very small. You have to eat a lot of them to fill up. So you had to eat, a couple thousand of them.
I hear it's a delicacy, Tony.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can eat them several ways. Under glass, you can eat them under glass. You can bread them. You can fillet them.
Do you do the all juice way with the fruit fly with the gravy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well you can boil them, like steam them like clams, and they open up, and you can dip them in like butter and all that. So they're quite tasty. They're quite tasty.
Delicious.
And we made sure we took all the condoms off them first, though, before we shipped them.
I hate to get that stuck in my teeth. They get a little gummy
if you leave them on, a little chewy. But
it was funny. The other day, every morning we visit our grandmother upstairs, and we have a cup of coffee with her. And she was telling us, that she was watching TV, and there was a show where they were eating crickets. And she couldn't believe it. They were eating crickets. They were eating them. I said, then of course me and Jeff said.
If food prices go up any higher, I think that's what we're all going.
Well, that's what we said to Grandma.
We said, Grandma, they're just trying to prepare us for the idea that eating cricket's not so bad.
Right. That's just a shame, though. Obama couldn't eat his lobster lunch. But I got some bad news for Carl. I understand when if Menendez gets indicted, they're going to pack the jury with all girls under 18 on the jury.
Yeah, I'll bet.
They're all going to be under 18 on the jury, so I think that the fix is in, boys.
That's right. All right, thank you for the call,
Tony. And I want to leave you with this, though.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about religion and all that. You have to watch what the enemy's up to over there on PMS LSD. That's what I call that station.
Yeah. Right.
Before the man even come out to talk, they were attacking the new pope, taking cheap shots at the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable.
It is.
Well,
all right,
have a good St. Patty's Day, and talk to you guys next week.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, have a good one, guys.
You too. Yeah. The what Bob was saying, the satanic agenda. Let's face it, the Bible's been amazingly accurate in all its prophecies, and we just don't know when. So that's a matter of just time and being aware and awake and just paying attention.
Let's get back to Eustace here. So Eustace has his 1,000-acre Turtle Island preserve and lives there by himself, and he's developed a living where he's not dependent on the system. And one of those ways is alternative energy, right? I mean, you can make your own energy. You can harvest your own fuel.
And he does that. He harvested his own wood for building his property, which is one of the things on the 78-page report that the state of North Carolina has a problem with, because the lumber is not grade marked lumber.
So in other words, he hasn't participated in the system.
That's right, and bought
through the lumber company. That's probably a huge, conglomerate of companies, and so corporatism is alive and well.
It's alive and well, and he has an open air kitchen. He cooks outside.
Right.
When you here, it's real simple. When you live primitively, the last thing you want to do is cook inside your house. Why? Because you don't want to make your house hot in the summertime.
Right.
So you cook outside.
Sure,
that's the way it's done.
Yeah.
But of course they don't approve of that because the cooking area is not protected from insects and animals.
Yeah, but that's his choice. I mean, clearly this guy isn't going to the government saying, I made myself sick and now the government has to fix it for me.
He's been living there for 20, 30 years.
Right.
He's not bothering nobody.
Like I said,
it's 1,000 acres in North Carolina.
Yeah, and this sounds vaguely familiar.
It sure does.
If listeners recall the case of, was it the Chicken Man?
The Chicken Man.
The Chicken Man in Georgia.
Yep.
And forgive me, I forget his name, but this was a case where the fella had, a large piece of property, and again, he was there by himself.
I think he was in Georgia.
It was in Georgia, and he raised chickens, and apparently he brought people in to show them,
about chickens,
how teach them about chickens, and that sort of thing, and same thing, same exact thing, almost to the letter. Somebody complained for some reason, and hearing from the neighbors in this particular story in Georgia, he was a great neighbor. He didn't bother anybody. He was actually a good neighbor. He was very helpful to his neighbors.
He gave them eggs.
He helped them. They had nothing but good things to say about this Chicken Man. But that wasn't good enough, because ultimately what happened was they put this guy in jail. They harassed him to the point where they took his property, and when they came to collect, he blew himself up. He blew the house up.
He did,
and himself
killed himself.
But as it turns out, interestingly enough, then they promptly put in a nice park on his property, which from what I understand, that was the plan all along.
That's what they wanted to do.
They had this master plan in place
that included his
property. So they had to get it somehow, and apparently they didn't want to pay for it, right?
Right.
Because why pay for something that you can just take?
Right.
And I don't know, I smell 1,000 acres in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's got to be a pretty sweet piece of prime real estate, right?
You know it.
So I don't know.
This anonymous tip, gee, I wonder. No, it couldn't be some sort of company or developer or somebody that's wanting to expand their commercial horizons at the expense of Mr. Conway.
He's only one person.
Right. When they would be doing it for the greater good.
The greater good, yeah. And we've said this before, listeners. Beware of these master plans in your community.
Yeah.
Beware of these grants
from the federal government.
The federal government, from places like the Department of Transportation putting bike lanes in, for heaven's sakes, or from Homeland Security
giving you a vehicle, an armored personnel vehicle,
whatever it was, vehicle. Why? Giving these towns drones and SWAT equipment. And
the militarization of
the police. This isn't being done for our good.
No, and it's not being done to protect you, listeners.
No.
It's not being done to protect you. They're getting ready for something. When you have the government militarizing the police departments,
which is against the Constitution,
it is. Yeah. You have basically these SWAT teams going crazy nationwide, banging down doors and all kinds of mayhem going on. When you have billions and billions of rounds of ammunition being bought by these government agencies, including Department of Homeland Security, Social Security, the NOAA, the National Weather Service, basically.
Buying ammunition.
What's going on here?
Yeah, it's scary.
And when they're buying all these rounds of ammunition that basically could fight the Iraq War for hundreds of years, you should be raising question marks and be looking into it.
Right. And one way is to prepare yourself to be independent. Let's get back to the way our founders intended us to be, freedom-loving Americans. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.